Hello, today we're going to be looking at DCX AEW #1, written by Steve Orlando with artwork by Travis Mercer. So the basic premise here is the superstars of All Elite Wrestling explode out of the ring into the DC universe. The intergalactic title, the Big Galactic Belt, is made of pure element X, the most powerful metal in the universe, but it is shattered by Starsham, and the AEW and DC heroes must find all the pieces to save the universe. So that's the basic premise here. Once again, I think this book is definitely made more for the fans of AEW, more so than DC. Not that that's the thing, but I think that's really the people that are going to gravitate towards this. I have to hand it to Orlando, because basically this entire first issue is pure exposition, because it has an AEW superstar with a particular DC hero where they're out finding each piece. And really that's to introduce, I think, really the wrestlers to, the more comic readers that aren't necessarily maybe familiar with the wrestlers. So that's, it's kind of a thankless job when you have to do something like this. And I think Orlando's done the best he can with what, the parameters of having to set every single thing up in this first issue. Mercer's art, he does a good job of, basically, drawing tons of different wrestlers and making them look like their human counterparts. And also, the DC characters, make sure they kind of look like DC characters. But overall, it's like I said, there's a lot of exposition. It's a lot of setup in this issue. And I think, it's going to be one of those things. I thought it was fine for what it was, but, I'm not a particularly big wrestling fan. But, everything was ultimately fairly competently done, which is kind of a win when you're, like I said, when you're trying to, wrangle all this stuff. Orlando and Mercer do the best they can with what they have to work with, and I think they do a pretty darn good job, all things considered. And, like I said, it's a setup. So I think if you're a fan of AEW, you're going to enjoy this. But I'm not so sure that if you're just a regular comic reader and not a big wrestling fan, then I'm not sure. But I think if this interests you, you should check it out. Like I said, the story's pretty decent for a setup, and Mercer's art's nice. So what did you think? Did I miss anything in my review? Let me know in the comments, and make sure you subscribe for my upcoming reviews. And thanks for watching. Bye bye.